Today is Friday, August the 13th, 2021. This is Speak On It with your current team. My name is Malik. Today, we will start with something that we've discussed on many occasions back in the day, the census. So now the information is out. And I'm going to just give you a little note that I jotted down from a piece that we was going to use, but somehow or another, this morning, as Mr. Amara tried to access that particular piece that I had sent him, it wanted you to subscribe, so we're going to have to use something else. But basically what it said was this, and they, of course, blamed Trump and the pandemic for the most part, along with the traditional fake out and blaming Negroes for being invisible and not wanting to be counted. But they didn't take responsibility, and they, as the government, the phantoms, whoever, did not take responsibility for the fact that, you know, whatever they say in the census, they say that. They do that. But some of us already saw what we are reading and hearing today. Back in the 90s, early 20s, we heard, well, I heard, and some people I know heard a lot of talk about the browning of America. And it was stated that by now, 2021, the majority of the people in America would be brown. And now they are saying in the census that that is basically the truth. But watch this. White Americans remain the nation's largest racial group, even as that population decreased by 8.6% since 2010. Now, although they lost people, not really lost people, but their numbers decreased. And everybody else increased. They found a way out, Trump and the pandemic. So it still looked like they called it. I'm saying this, and I'd like for those of you that actually are old school enough to sit and look at cable TV. I know that cable TV, like so many other things, and radio, you know, is being discounted by the new generations and there's these new platforms. But some of us ain't dead yet. So for those of us that still look at canned TV and other type of cable TV, y'all just pay attention. And if you got some little grandkids sitting there, they got enough sense to listen to you, let them hear this too, because this is part of something that the new media platforms and the new generations don't want to hear. They off into something that's going to get them really caught up, particularly the Negro. Now, this is how it works. Hispanics and Latinos ballooned, talking about their percentage, 23%. Understand? White folks lost 8.6%. Latinos and Hispanics. So they mixed Latinos and Hispanics. Now, 23%. But every time a Negro opens his mouth in Chicago, he's talking about, or she talking about, black and brown. No, dude, they didn't mix you in with the Hispanics, with your dumb behind. They didn't mix you in with Hispanics and Latinos to make up that 23%. Only you, Negro, do that. They kept theirs together because they're basically what? Spanish speaking. Now the Asian, here's some more. Asian, listen at the word now. White folks decreased, word. Hispanics ballooned, word. Asians surged, 36%. Think, whole bunch of Hispanics and Latinos and Asians can't even vote. So how in the hell did they get counted? Huh? They did. I know I was out there with the census thing passing it out. Didn't get none of that money that these big shot parasites and barracudas had, but got a little minimum wage. And probably the reason the count for black folks didn't go up is because the creatures you gave the money to get people out, to get the vote out with the people that was trusted by the people in the hood, those people took the damn money and used it to buy Bentleys. So how can you say that? Don't ask me how I can say that. If they didn't buy the damn Bentley, they rented it so they could drive by with their bougie behinds acting like they was plantation overseers. That's what happened to a lot of the money that was supposed to be used to get the vote out, to get the census count in the black community. But Negroes like me that was out in the hood willing to get out and go underground and get them up, oh no, they wouldn't give us a dime. And if we got the little minimum wage piece to do it, we had to be on the down low. Because they really didn't want people with credibility reaching for black folk. Because there's a way you talk to Negroes that get Negroes not to resist when you can communicate to them in a way, look, this is what we own. But those of you that's out there with your people of color projection, your black and brown projection, you see what it got you? It got you decreased. Your population only grew 6. They didn't even say that. They said it grew about. Now, that was clear how the Hispanics and the Latinos grew. They was clear about how the whites decreased. But when they got to the Negro, check the terminology. And for those of you to say, oh, he's just being petty, it don't count. No, I'm just being straight up. You better start paying attention. Because what it says is that the black American grew about 6%. See that word? About? Think. You're so ignorant. Black American. They don't even put Negro in there again. Now I'm a Negro American, but there ain't no category for me. Because you went for that stupidness that those operatives of the 70s made you think you was black. Now got you thinking that you can only exist with brown. But the so-called Negro African American consists of all shades of people. But now you done mixed it with the Hispanic, the Latino, and the Asian. And they gonna benefit large from the census. And you got about. So when the time comes for you to get a piece of the pie, they gonna say, oh, you're about a crumb. Why am I'm about a crumb? Because you've been diluted. See? And I remember so clearly standing on 63rd and Damon and on 63rd and Ashland. And they had all these little highfalutin, light-skinned Negroes coming out there with their little tables and setting up, trying to reach for people for the census. And I'm standing there, and some of them just come sit up in front of me. And I just have to check them and say, what's up? Do you think I'm invisible? And then they look all stupid. Think, well, who are you? Why are you here? I was here before you. But they just thought they had that because the money had been sent to them politically. So a dude like me standing there looking the way I look, talking to the people I'm talking to, and they coming, so they had to give them a lot of little gifts. So all of them little gifts you gave them, the money you spent on little toys and tokens giving grown folk, didn't help black folk too much. Because at the end of the day, they are only about 6%. What an insult. About? And some people that can't even be counted grew 36%. Some people that can't even be counted grew 23%. You know, it's amazing. There are many people of color, according to that article, that were not counted across the country. They didn't say there was many Negroes or black or so-called African Americans. You can't call yourself African American because there are too many other people here from Africa that was born in Africa, that have been naturalized citizens here, that was even born here, but their parents from Africa. They are straight up Africans. They are Ghanaians, Nigerian, Cameroonians. You see what I'm saying? Kenyans. These are African Americans, you dumb Negro slave. You are not the same as they. And when they counted them, where did their category go? Where did the real African go? Huh? Where did the Haitian go? Huh? Where did the Bolivian go? Huh? Did they go in black and brown? Where did they go? If they went into African American or they went into other, then where did the so-called used to be Negro get counted at? He got counted in that little 6% about. Oh yeah, I'm gonna make a big fuss over it because it don't matter. Because all of y'all think y'all so cool. But even when they came down to their summary, they say, but there are many people across the country, people of color, that was not counted. See? They didn't even speak about you, Negro, descendant of slave. They don't even care about you because you only grew about 6%. They got somebody else that ballooned 23%. Somebody else that surged 36%. And white folks, bam, went down 8.6%. And you, Negro, is only an about. You might have grew about. See? You won't even exist in the next census because you'll be under a flag called what? People of color. So much for that. Now, Amari, let them hear what white folks is telling them, but I needed to tell you like that. And I don't think nothing on that should be blocked because that should not be a copyright issue. And yeah, I take full responsibility of all of that I said there. That's to be credited under me. And there is no reason for nobody else to get in my business. Because that is what the article said. We told you, you poor Negro, everybody benefited. And you got a about. And let me just say this. In Illinois, let me just stay on the road, Omar. Illinois lost, no, should I say Illinois gained in 50,000 people, if I remember correctly. But they lost 85,000 Negroes. Whew. See, you little people of color, can't you see? You are being faked out. Now, the population of Illinois increased basically by Asians and Hispanics and Latinos. 50,000. That's what I should have said, 50,000. But it decreased by 85,000. So those colonies where Negroes are concentrated will get less resources. And the undocumented immigrants that can't vote ain't did nothing but just got off the boat. They'll get money you should have got, if not in official reparations, but in services. But instead, they say you left. They say you was invisible. And you say it don't matter. Whew. Boy, you descendants of slaves, you are a disgrace to your ancestors. And you ones that were calling yourselves the gatekeepers, the politicians, the preachers, they need to just go, your ancestors need to rise up out of the ground and take a damn stick and whoop your naked behind. they need to whoop you until your skin, like they used to say, I'm going to beat the hide off of you. The dead should rise up, and most of you preachers, most of you politicians, your ancestors should take a whip, should take a piece of barbed wire and come alive and beat the hide off of you because you have misled current descendants of slaves by trying to be what the damn slave master wants you to be, instead of being upright human beings striving for equality. You've decided to choose imitation. Come on, man, let's go.
Today, new data from the 2020 census will be released, giving an updated portrait of a country that has grown more diverse than ever. For the first time, all population growth has been driven by minorities. William Fry, Senior Fellow at the Brookings Institute, joins us now to make sense of this all. Good morning, William. Thank you so much for being here. So, though the official data will actually be released later, we do have some insight into what this is going to show, as I just mentioned. So tell us, what are the headlines here?
Sure. I mean, I think people are going to be surprised about how much more diverse the United States is going to be. There's a very good possibility that we're going to have a small decline in our white population. In other words, you fill out the census, you decide what you're going to identify yourself as, what race you're going to be. And this would be the first census that happened. That would mean all the growth in this country over the last 10 years would be coming from people of color. Probably Latinos will account for about half of that growth. Asian Americans, maybe a quarter of that growth. And probably for the first time, we're going to have more than 40% of the U.S. population will be people of color. So, you know, that'll spread out differently in different states and in different parts of the country. But it really, we're becoming more diverse everywhere. And what this census will show is all the data from all the states and all the cities and all the counties. You'll be able to look that up and see how you fare and how your community fares over the last 10 years.
And so, William, as you just mentioned, that we are expecting to see this decline in the number of white Americans, and that's actually the first time ever, and it's ahead of projections. Expand on that a little bit for us.
Yes. I mean, first of all, we need to think that the white population, and these are people who say they're white and don't identify with any other race or ethnic group. They're not mixed race people, but just to say they're white, which is still the largest part of the U.S. population. But it's older than the rest of the population, which means it has a higher level of mortality. More people die. Fewer people are born because there are proportionally fewer women in their childbearing ages in this older population. And so over time, really for this last decade, the white population had more deaths than births. Now, there is immigration of whites. There is white immigration, but even that has come down a little bit over the last decade with immigration restrictions. And in the aftermath of the Great Recession in the first part of this decade, the economy didn't attract as many more immigrants. So even though we're going to continue to have a very slow growth or decline in our white population, it was, accentuated for these reasons.
And I know you've spoken in the past about a cultural generation gap. Is that what you're talking about here, where older generations are whiter than younger ones?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we might find from these census results is that the people under age 18 in the U.S. may be minority white. That means whites may be half of the population, only less than half of the population under age 18, the young population, people of color. And so, the cultural generation gap is, we've seen it in politics. A lot of older people my age, and it's a largely white generation, somehow have a little trouble grasping this change demographically. And it's got caught up in politics and attitudes about immigration and so forth. So the younger population, of course, is much more open to diversity. So that's the cultural generation gap and attitudes that we're seeing in this country.
William, very interesting, and so much that we will find out later today as this comes out. Thank you for joining us for a preview.
Happy to do it.
Well, there's nothing else for me to say on that. I wanted to get it out and get it in before he did, and before she did, because I wanted you to hear it from a street level Negro. And that's how he said. You see what he said in the end? The people of color. But who are? What is that? People of color. What is it? It's everything. But what it ain't is a descendant of a slave. The Negro is not a part of the people of color. Only the Negro believe that. You see what they did. Latino and Hispanic merged together. Asians, Japanese, Koreans, Chinese, Indians merged together. 36%. The Negro, Black, African American, question mark, about 6%. You see? So instead of you calling yourself a Negro, calling yourself a Black, you call yourself something else. And as a result of that, everybody else has increased 4 to 5% as it relates to being able to get benefits and services from the government and the taxes spent. But you, the only one stupid enough to talk about black and brown. The only one stupid enough to try to erase who you are. So now you got all of these other people. And they talking about people of color. But people of color has become the bandwagon for the new American. But the Negro is not considered part of the new American. Yeah, you might have some mulatto kids. Hell, you had them doing slavery. But that didn't make them a real live person of color. It just made them a Creole. But they were still descendants of slaves. Now what are you, Negro? Let's move on. What is this up here, man?
Their critically injured colleague is in yet another surgery since Saturday night.
Through this wound, we come with strength.
Things are uneasy for Chicago police officers.
Going back to work, back each other up. Pay attention.
They're mourning the loss of Officer Ella French, whose mother is now planning her funeral.
She is determined for everybody to know who her daughter was, and rightly so, because Ella's story deserves to be told. She was 29 years old.
Officers cling to prayer-inscribed dog tags, hoping another badly injured officer pulls through.
Everybody's up there right now praying for him, and I hope everybody else is praying for him also.
The two brothers charged in connection to the officer shootings are being held without bail. A judge denied bond Tuesday afternoon. Investigators say 21-year-old Imonte Morgan shot both officers in what started as a traffic stop over expired tags Saturday night. Prosecutors say 22-year-old Eric Morgan ran away from the scene and tried to get rid of the murder weapon. The I-Team has obtained this freeze frame from one of the police body cameras. We aren't showing the woman in the passenger seat because she hasn't been charged. Prosecutors say the driver seen here, Eric Morgan, according to prosecutors, has been charged with felony gun violations. And that is Officer Ella French with the flashlight shining through the driver's side window, according to a law enforcement official who provided us with the picture. Investigators say French was killed by shots fired by Morgan's brother, Imonte. He's charged with first-degree murder. Prosecutors say when Officer French asked Eric Morgan to hand over the car keys and get out, he did. But police say Imonte Morgan, who was sitting in the backseat, did not cooperate. Investigators say he struggled with police and had a gun in his waistband. According to officials, both officers had their guns holstered when Imonte pulled out a gun and fired. The two officers fell to the ground. Police say the officers' body cameras were still rolling, capturing the suspect stepping over the officers' bodies while carrying a gun.
Now, Amar, would you put the pictures of those two brothers back up there? But in the meanwhile, let me connect the dots and unravel the knots. Those two individuals are people of color, no doubt. And many of us, we talked about this on the radio program the other night, many of us were just waiting to see what was going to be the outcome when the pictures were released. See, I've spent a lot of days standing there on 63rd and Bell, there by the viaduct. You got schools, Claremont, O'Toole, Earl. Then the high schools, Hopper, Lindblom, they're all in the area. But the population consists of Jamaicans, Belize, Mexicans, Puerto Ricans, Negroes, all type of people, and white folk. So some of us just assumed that the area, 63rd and Bell, trying to figure out what in the hell could be happening there. Well, we know that the scrappers use the viaduct to come under there to get to the junkyard.
It's time to help people.
We know this. And we know that basically it ain't a whole lot of congestion right there. So we were trying to figure out what could have happened. What? Why? Which way was they going? And because they were sort of delayed in saying the name and showing the pictures, we was wondering. But then when we saw the pictures, because of people of color, we was confused. We were relieved. Because when we looked at those two brothers, we saw what appeared to be Hispanic. Now, we didn't know what type of Hispanic, but they looked like from a distance. Their features from a distance, their complexion from a distance made them people of color. But when you heard their name, it made them either white folk or Negro. Feel me? That's what their name suggested. Their name did not suggest Hispanic. Their name did not suggest Dominican. Their name did not suggest Latino. It suggested Negro or white. But they people of color. And one of the callers called into the show Wednesday night, and she said that her son called her, and he was out of town, and he was really disturbed because he went to school with one of the brothers. And he wanted to know, had the mother heard about it? And she explained, of course. And he clarified and said, yes, they are truly black. They us. One of them with the braids, the locks, whatever. So that would be a little strange to try to figure out what, you know. But he could have been a Jamaican. He could have been anything. But the world will see him as a Negro. Mm-hmm. Now, had he made some great achievement doing something good, they probably would have made him a Hispanic or Latino. But his brother, with the gang signal in his face, and both of them had the symbol on their neck, that lion signal, that representation. If you saw them on the street, depending on where they were, you wouldn't know whether or not they was Negro, but you would feel the vibe that said what? Hispanic. Confusion, y'all. Confusion. You say, well, why do you keep dealing with race? I keep dealing with race because race is not the issue with your ignorant self. It's about the heritage. That's what it's about. It's about your ancestors, you fool. Now, you can't tell who you are. But when the world hear the word Morgan, they see dark-skinned Negroes. And maybe had these two been dark-skinned, the way the police approached them would have definitely been different. But maybe because they was people of color and looked like they could have been Hispanic, the police went to them with a different attitude and a different posture. And maybe the police might have been confused too. Because had they seen two black males in a car and a dark-skinned black female, they might have treated them different, like they usually do. And they probably would have killed them instead of them killing the police. You see? But you say it don't matter. It matters. Find a piece to talk about. No, you don't. Don't find nothing. I'm going to just follow what you got, Omar.
The number of people shot in Chicago is up 11% from same time last year. One of the latest victims, this police officer who was killed during a traffic stop. 2 brothers have been charged in connection with this shooting, and their mother ended up arrested too when she demanded to see one of her sons. Stephen Fabian with details on that.
Her son is an accused cop killer, but this mom is determined to see him in the hospital where he is under armed guard.
Let me get in this hospital to see my damn son.
The mother live streamed herself in the hospital looking for him.
I'm gonna find you, baby. You can guarantee that.
She gets to the floor where her son is being treated for injuries sustained in the police shootout.
Can you open the door? I'm trying to see my son.
But when the door is opened, an ugly confrontation erupts.
Don't touch me! Get away from me! Stop! 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 Stop!
She is confronted by security.
Stop! Stop! Put your hands behind you. Let me see my son!
Now the mom, identified as Evelina Flores, is facing criminal trespass charges. Her hospitalized son, Amante Morgan, is accused of shooting Chicago cop Ella French during a traffic stop. His brother Eric is facing weapons charges. Cops released this body cam image of the officer when she pulled the Morgan brothers over for allegedly having expired plates.
Officer down, shot in the head between the eyes.
The slain officer was just 29 years old. She's the first female officer in Chicago to be slain in the line of duty in 33 years. Her partner was also critically wounded, and he's fighting for his life.
My boys are not monsters.
Evelina Flores posted this video defending her sons.
There is another side, and my boy's side is not being told right now. Let me see my son!
Officer French's brother said his sister joined the police force because she wanted to do good for the world.
Now, let me say this. And Amari, why I'm saying this, maybe you can find this piece that's confusing. I'm finna send it to you again, though, because this is another part of this doggone people of color thing. Whereas the person that was involved in that situation where the police ran into her house, they would make you believe, and maybe it's true. See, the mother last name is Flores, but her spirit, her voice is Negro. Her energy is Negro. You see? But her sons and her complexion and their complexion appear something else. But Flores sound Mexican or Hispanic. You say it don't matter. Yes, it does, because people of color. Where do you fit, Negro? That's my point. My point is, see how confusing it is? Now, we have not talked about it, but I am going to say it. Officer French. I hadn't thought that she was in it. I don't know what I thought she was. I saw her complexion, but her last name is not Hispanic. And then I saw an article this morning that made it seem like they even called her a black. Well, her complexion and the complexion of these boys' mama are the same. They look like sisters. So you see how confusing you have allowed yourself, Negro. And don't say it's me because I'm crazy. Or you can say it if you want to. But what you have done and created an atmosphere for your children that as they grow up, they will be able to see. Says Fallen CP over there, there's one that say that the black officer was the only one that showed compassion, that helped her. But I don't even really want to get into that much. But the fact is, it's out there where somebody said, matter of fact, that's who said it, that Officer French, God rest her soul, was the only one that treated her kindly, well, you won't say kindly, but was not as bogus
story to tell
as
you
those
about.
other
A
officers
judge has
that
denied
ran up
bond
in
for
there
the two
on her.
brothers accused of killing Chicago police officer Ella French. Police say Amante Morgan was the gunman. He is still in the hospital after being shot by police. He's also accused of shooting Officer French's partner, who is still in critical condition.
Monte Morgan exited that car with a drink in one hand and a cell phone in the other. He refused repeated instructions to set those items down. He began physically jerking his arms away from those officers.
The confrontation was captured on police body camera. The judge noted the officers did not have their weapons drawn when they were shot. And the Indiana man accused of buying the gun that killed Officer French will be in court today. Federal officials say 29-year-old Jamel Danzy of Hammond bought this gun for one of the people who was in the car stopped by Officer French and her partner. Danzy is charged with conspiracy to violate federal firearm laws.
The city continues to mourn the life of Chicago police officer Ella French as her partner remains in critical condition. NBC5's Jen DeSalvo tells us what officers and residents are doing to honor the two. Good morning, Jen.
Good morning, Kate. Supporters of Officer Ella French and her partner continue to plan events to honor and pray for the officers. This evening, a pair of vigils, one on the far northwest side of the city, the other on the south side. Alderman Nicholas Sposato hosting a Support the Police rally outside the 16th District Police Station in Jefferson Park. That one starts at 6:30. At the same time, in Morgan Park, Alderman Matt O'Shea joins members from the CPD's Champlain's Ministry and Chicago Police Memorial Foundation to host a prayer vigil. O'Shea's 19th Ward is home to thousands of active and retired Chicago police officers. Supporters will join to pray outside of the 22nd Police District Station. That's on Monterey. Yesterday, officers and supporters walked and prayed.
We ask you to bless our great city. This horrible tragedy weakened the city, us officers, as if a wound. But through this wound, we come with strength and resolve to continue to do the good work that you have called us to do.
This gathering outside of the University of Chicago Hospital, where Officer Ella French's partner underwent delicate surgery to remove a bullet from his brain yesterday. He was shot in the shoulder and the eye Saturday night during the routine traffic stop that turned deadly and claimed the life of Officer Ella French. Chicago's FOP President John Catanzara says there are going to be more prayer vigils every day going forward until Officer French is laid to rest next week.
Well, man, I had to be careful with this.
If you have hearing loss, you can still
I'm beginning to believe more and more that there's something that, is missing here. Because, you don't never see, they don't usually keep, Negroes' bodies out that long. So, there's so much going on here.
Developing at 11, police are investigating.
I'm just trying to be clear. I'm trying to figure out. We're looking at the census. We're looking at this whole phenomenon called people of color. And I'm looking and I'm seeing that something is happening here that's different. Usually, these type of situations here, they be done with by now. Not, but it is what it is. I have not seen her parents. I just saw the parent of another officer, but I have not seen her parents. You see? And yeah, I'm not scared. I'm not shy to speak about something that you thinking, that you talking in the hood, that you talking in your house. No, I'm talking about it. We are confused as hell. You're going to be more confused because you don't know who you are no more, Negro. You don't know if you're a person of color. You don't know who in the hell you are. And does it matter? It matters. But it don't matter to the extent that you should be discriminating and hating people. No, it don't. But it matters to the extent that you should never forget that you are a descendant of slave, and as a result of that, you have a different status in this society. And if you don't be careful, they will treat you even worse than they treated your ancestors. Move to the next point, brother.
Developing at 11, police are investigating the death of an Altamont Springs woman who was allegedly shot by her own toddler. Co-workers on a Zoom call watched it all happen. News 6's Troy Campbell is following this story for us tonight. So, Troy, how do police believe this all happened?
Well, Lisa and Matt, Altamont Springs police say when their officers arrived at that apartment complex, they weren't exactly sure what they would find once they entered that unit. Now, investigators say it appears somehow a loaded gun got in the hands of a toddler, leading to the deadly shooting.
We came in and there was cops everywhere back there, and all of this was all blocked out. No one could pass through.
Carolina Gomez lives at the Oaks of Spring Valley Apartments near I-4 in Altamont Springs. She described to News 6 seeing these officers Wednesday afternoon. Altamont Springs police say just after 11 a.m., the victim, 21-year-old Shamaya Lynn, was on a work-related Zoom call when a coworker on the other end told dispatchers she heard a loud noise moments before she saw Lynn fall backwards and didn't return in frame of the screen. Investigators saying Lynn's toddler found a loaded, unlocked gun and fired a fatal shot to her head.
You could just imagine it's a terrible tragedy for any family to face. One that has devastated her entire family and our community.
Police say they're working with the state attorney's office to determine if charges will be filed against the toddler's father, who investigators say owns the gun used in the shooting.
You think about what the family is going to be going through from not only today, tomorrow, the next day, but for years and years to come.
Gomez says her heart breaks for the family.
Yeah, I know, it's really sad. I mean, I have nieces and nephews, and I can't imagine what they would be going through.
Altamont Springs police also say if you have a firearm and you don't have a gun lock for it, you can come here to their police headquarters and they'll give you one for free. Investigators also say as of now, no charges have been filed against the toddler's father, who again investigators believe owns the gun that was used in the deadly shooting. Live in Altamont Springs tonight, Troy Campbell, Getting Results, News 6.
Troy, thank you.
Now, I just wanted to use this piece to show you, as it relates to last week, where that 40-year-old was shot and somebody was arrested. This toddler shoots his mother. Nobody has been arrested. And the reason is, I don't know, don't care. But the
Developing
point is
at 11,
that
police
if you
are
got a
investigating
gun,
the death
you
of an
need to figure out
Altamont
a way
Springs woman.
to protect your family in situations like this. Next, brother.
At 11, police are investigating the death of an Altamont Springs woman who was allegedly shot by her own toddler. Co-workers on a Zoom call watched it all happen.
I don't know, this is a
News 6's Troy
rerun.
Campbell is following this story for us tonight.
So I don't know, technology sometimes rolls like that. Now, the next piece we're going to dibble back into some of the fallout as it relates to this situation in Chicago. We just need to get back on that. We're going to spend quite a bit of time
Get
on
your
that.
free auto insurance
All
quote
right,
in
brother.
just 2 minutes. Insure
Superintendent
on the
Brown,
spot
of
has the
course,
lowest rates.
ain't pleased with this judge letting this person out that bought the gun that was used.
Well, good morning. Vigils across the city once again last night for Officer French and her partner, who is still here at the hospital recovering, all while Superintendent David Brown expressed his outrage at a federal judge.
While bagpipes played, more than 200 people bowed their heads in prayer.
Today, as a community, we grieve.
Last night, they gathered outside the 22nd Police District headquarters in Morgan Park to honor and remember.
It is not how these officers died that made them heroes, but how they lived. And that is how we should always remember Ella.
The crowd, made up of cops, CPD families, and a community hurting, offered their condolences, but also their hopes that better days are ahead.
If something like this happens to someone like her, and it doesn't make people kind of wake up and at least, take a look at what's going on, I don't know what would.
Last Saturday in West Englewood, a struggle during a traffic stop led to Officer Ella French and her partner being shot. French died from her wound, her partner critically injured.
He's not out of the woods by any stretch of the imagination, so we just got to keep praying for him, that's all.
Prosecutors say 21-year-old Amonte Morgan pulled the trigger. His 22-year-old brother Eric, who was driving that night, tried to get rid of the gun used. A gun federal prosecutors say was bought legally by 29-year-old Jamel Danzy from Hammond, Indiana, but as a straw purchase. They say he sold it to one of the Morgan brothers who couldn't legally buy a firearm. A federal judge released Danzy on a $4,500 unsecured bond, a decision blasted by Superintendent David Brown, who said in a written statement, quote, It is an outrage. This decision sets a dangerous precedent that straw purchasers like Danzy are not a danger to society, despite the fact that his alleged actions directly led to a murder of a Chicago police officer and left another in critical condition.
Brown called Danzy's release a disservice to the entire Chicago Police Department. We are at the University of Chicago Medical Center. I'm Eric Rung, WGN News.
It's back to school. Are you ready?
Well, there's nothing to be said on that. Dude, friend, bought a gun, 22, which is interesting. You don't hardly hear too much about 22s now. And that gun was used in this situation. And with all of the task force and special things that they're doing with the Fed, and, you know, you would have thought they would have kept him in jail. But they didn't. He got a master's degree. He worked with children. You know, so
Chicago police officer
it is what
since
it is.
last night. And
go on, man.
according to the Chicago Sun-Times, so far this month, 155 people have been shot in gun violence across the city. And I want to start with Gianno in this, but I want to just kind of clarify for context very quickly. You talk about the Sun-Times article. That article was posted at 6:11 this morning. So from 7 o'clock last night until 6:11 this morning, 11 hours and 11 minutes, 45 people were shot. That's more than 4 people per hour. And if anybody doesn't think that Chicago, the South Side, the West Side are war zones at this point in time, they need to look at the numbers again. You're from Gianno, and I know this is very personal to you.
Yeah, it is, and it's really unfortunate that it is a war zone, Chicago. And I recently had a situation. My younger sister called me last week. I was in Italy. And she told me that the night before, she was leaving the grocery store when 2 people, a man and a woman, walked up to her and attacked her. It was unprovoked. She had her 3-month-old son with her, my nephew. They beat her down to the ground, kicked her in the face, kicked her in her stomach, and then pulled a gun out on her and told her that they would kill her and her son. These are issues that many individuals across the city, whether you be on the south sides or west sides where it has historically happened, the violence, or whether you be downtown on the Gold Coast or even in Lincoln Park where there's usually a younger white group of folks, college students live. There's been mass shootings in those areas which we had never seen before. Who's to blame? The mayor of Chicago, the Cook County prosecutor especially. The Cook County prosecutor, Kim Foxx, has released 25,000 felony cases, including murder cases. There was an analysis by the Sun-Times also that showed in the last 6 years, over 1,000 shootings, almost 150 people who died from those shootings. 2 convictions out of over 1,000 people. This is not an American city. The leadership needs to be kicked out, and the residents of Chicago have to start telling on the people who are committing the crimes. Snitching needs to be the new season in Chicago.
Yeah, I mean, our hearts go out to you and your family. That story, heart-rending details.
She's okay.
John.
Thank God she's okay now.
Yeah,
Thank you.
That is good news. But you bring up great numbers, and you talk about murderers being released. I mean, they're running out of ankle bracelets. They're releasing murder suspects in Chicago and running out of ankle bracelets. So in some cases, you have murder suspects just wandering around with no checks, with no observation at all. And Abby, you listen to the police officers who are under fire and the people in these neighborhoods under fire. I want to play this soundbite from the Reverend Eugene Rivers on the problem of the violence and then get your response.
Black on black violence is a problem. You can't say that you're for, say, Black Lives Matters, which is ridiculous, and then refuse to confront the fact that black people are killing black people. Then you want to defund the police. That's absurd. It's irresponsible. And any politician that suggests that should be defunded.
We often wonder, Abby, that why on a day like this, when you had 45 shootings and you had 2 police officers shot, why are there not rallies? Why are there not marches through the streets of these cities by Black Lives Matters and others who are concerned?
Absolutely. And the only thing that we did see was all of the police officers showing up for that fallen officer and the one who's fighting for his life right now. And again, our thoughts and prayers go out to them. But the Reverend brings up a really good point. Why are you still trying to defund the police? Why, Cori Bush, are you saying these things?
Let's go on to something else,
We
Amara.
talked about it all last week.
Because I see we
But
running
here's
out
my
of time. Now, there's another piece here. If you can, go back to where one of them to say 3 suspects arrested because there's some community people speaking, and the one that talks about the West Inglewood neighborhood. And then we want to get this whole idea about the Chicago police officer situation being one of the biggest tests of the man, Lightfoot. You know, if you see those, just run those. But in the meantime, you know, I don't want to get too far in the political part of this, but I do want to bring in some things. Yeah, this piece here, I want to see this piece. Now, this piece is interesting. And the reason I like it is because you hear the sentiment of the community. And this sentiment is not just in this clip. There's a lot of people feel like this.
Adelaide police shooting in custody now, at least one of them, thanks to the help of neighbors. CBS 2 investigator Dave Savini reports.
We were on the scene and spoke to people who live on that street, including a man who says he did what he could, along with a group of neighbors, to stop one of the suspects. Balloons, a gold star, and a teddy bear are among the items Officer Ella French's colleagues are leaving at the site where she was killed. The horrific scene and French's death now part of the sad reality of what increasing gun violence is doing to Chicago.
I'm angry and I'm hurt. I'm just hurt for her family. I'm hurt for she was so young, you know, and you should be able to go to work and come back home.
Yvette Smith, who grew up in this neighborhood, came back here to pay respect. She says she finds some comfort knowing neighbors helped catch one of the people trying to run away. Witnesses say one of the offenders got out of the car and headed this way, southbound on Bell Street. As he ran past this wooden fence, he got to this chain link fence. That's when witnesses say, he hopped this fence and was subdued just on the other side by neighbors who were having a barbecue at the base of that swing set. One man who did not want to be identified said the suspect had a gun that slipped out of his hand as he tried to pistol whip a Good Samaritan. That's when other neighbors at the barbecue came to the rescue and held the offender down until more police arrived.
It makes you feel better that the neighborhood people are starting to help, you know, because it's hard.
Officer French and her partners that night were part of Police Superintendent David Brown's newly created community safety team.
But I am happy here to unveil, we're calling them the Community Safety Team, CST. Every week, CFT team will partner with local block clubs, faith-based organizations.
These officers are on the front lines in some of the most crime-ridden areas. About 1,000 officers have been detailed at some point to the community safety team. It's not clear when French first got assigned to it.
And she wasn't just, on any detail. She was on one of the most difficult details in the city. This was the newly created community safety team.
Oh boy. And it's sad that this area is now considered that I grew up here. I grew up here from a little girl, went to school here. I have very fond memories of this area, you know what I mean? But it's changed and the city has changed, and I think we need to really, something has to change now. This right here, I don't know what, this one's not sitting easy for me.
Now, the data that we have shows she was not on the community safety team as of the 1st of this year, but she could have been detailed to it in the past 8 months. Dave Savini, CBS 2 Investigators.
Now, what I want to say is this. I spent many days in the summer and in the winter standing right there, 63rd and Bell, as a community watch person. Part of my responsibility is to be out in that area. And the area is to be saluted. Those residents said, no, not here. No, we will not help you escape. Understand? So what the mayor should do, take some of that snitch money, some of that $1 million you got for people to call in about guns, give those people that participated in the subduing of that particular criminal some of that money, because they did help you not only recover a gun, but catch a killer. Oh, I know you're going to say that money wasn't meant for that. They did better than snitch. They did better than turn in a gun. They helped you capture. Matter of fact, they caught the criminal. So, man, aldermen, tell the man, or should I say, beg the man to give money to all of those that was involved in that. That will encourage other folk to get involved. Because you heard the lady in the car. A whole lot of folk ain't feeling this. Everybody ain't feeling that the criminal should be allowed to do what they want to and let back out to do it again. No. And now we see in that particular situation where the community said enough is enough. We stopping you. And I'm telling you, they paint the picture of Inglewood as being so out of control. Man, I tell you, I stopped doing it, but I walked all over the area by myself, but that's so many people telling me, dog, man, you know, woo, 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 woo. You don't feel the violence over there. You don't feel it. You walk and you feel secure. You walk and you feel safe. Yeah, they start shooting, you better get out the way, because you're going to walk up on something. But just you moving around, it ain't that. People are not going around hating on the police like that. They ain't. People don't want the police killed. Don't nobody support that. People don't want other people killed. Don't nobody support that. But I admit, I have seen them shoot people. Yes, I have. And I've seen where they went. Yes, I have. And I ain't told the police nothing. Why? Because I got to walk that area. See? I got to stand that area. So you have to be discreet in what you do. Like the man say, don't show me on camera. I did what I had to do because I'm a man, and in my community I want it safe. And because he did that, he should be honored. You understand? Go to the next one, brother. We're running out of time. Yeah, I want this piece here.
Get your free auto insurance.
Yeah, this piece about the dispatcher. This one on a positive tip, and I want you to just listen to this, because we need to salute not only our people, but anybody that do something to support.
More about the 911 dispatcher who is being praised for his work that tragic
Keith Thornton Jr. says he's humbled by all the social media attention he's receiving. His friends say they're not surprised by his heroic actions. WG's Megan Dwyer has the story.
On Saturday night, the fears of so many came true.
I got an officer down, 10-1, 6-3 in Bell. Officer down, shots fired at the police.
Amid the chaos, there was a calm voice on the line, a 911 dispatcher who is now being hailed a hero.
I just want to make sure he knows that our city is proud of him.
It started with a simple post on social media, which has now been seen by tens of thousands.
He's very humble. He has a huge heart. He always wants to help people.
As an EMT and former police officer, Thornton knows the streets of Chicago inside and out.
I want a perimeter set up 3 blocks north, south, east, west of that location.
Saturday night, he was heard loud and clear.
Stay off my air without personal information, guys. You gotta get him to a trauma center, guys.
His quick thinking is now being credited for saving more officer lives that night.
It's just second nature to him.
And for helping officers on the streets quickly apprehend the suspects, not to mention getting Ella French and her partner to the hospital as quickly as possible.
Okay, listen to me. Take that damn vest off right now and start compressing, start breathing, whatever we gotta do.
Today on social media, he posted, quote, "Even though this catastrophe took place under my watch, and as devastating as it was, I wouldn't have wanted to be anywhere else." He says he wants to use the attention he's getting to bring people together, saying our police officers are hurting each and every day because many of them feel unsupported, unloved, and on edge. No one wants to live like this, and no one should have to work like this.
That was Megan Dwyer reporting for us tonight. Now, the Office of Emergency Management and Communications will be formally recognizing Thornton down the road. He hopes to meet personally with Ella French's family to pay his respects personally.
Amara, see, can you find that piece that talks about the officers turning their back on Lightfoot and the Fraternal Order of Police president talking about what he's talking
Top news
about?
story: a Chicago police officer is dead this morning, and another fighting for his life following a shooting during a traffic stop on Saturday night in Chicago. Officer Ella French was just 29 years old. She joins the growing list of officers who have died from gunfire in the U.S. this year. Here to react is president of the Chicago Fraternity of Police, Fraternal Order of Police, John Catanzara. John, good morning to you.
Good morning, Steve.
This is one of those things that is unfortunately not surprising.
It certainly has become less surprising every day in this country. That's the sad reality we're all facing.
And it's preventable, isn't it?
Well, it certainly is. You know, we say that it's an inherent risk when you decide to be a law enforcement officer, but the reckless policies that are permeating throughout this country make it more and more possible every day, and it's inexcusable and it is avoidable.
John, last year there were protests all across the country regarding the killing of George Floyd. A lot of people were talking about defunding the police. The public opinion of police wavered. Where are we now a year later regarding all of that?
Well, I know specifically here in Chicago, the city council finally stood up and had a voice and called the superintendent to the carpet and had a very lengthy discussion about police policies and where we're headed in the city of Chicago. They need to do that more often, and they certainly need to do it again and follow up, because there was a lot of answers that weren't given. But Ella French was the future of this police department, and this city is less safe because Ella French is no longer with us, because she was murdered by a violent individual that has absolutely been encouraged to do violent things by the people who run this city and state.
John, Ella French and her partner were members of the community safety team. I know that started last year. What does the community safety team do?
So the community safety team was a brainchild of the brass of the Chicago Police Department. And in their infinite wisdom, they created a policy that robbed the 22 police districts across the city of Chicago of manpower to create this 1,000-member entity. They concentrate primarily on the most violent neighborhoods within the city, but the same neighborhoods where they just took policemen out of the normal rank and file that would be working there on a beat car, and then leaving the beat officers very, very short-handed. It's robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Right. This officer, the first officer killed during the tenure of Lori Lightfoot as mayor, she spoke to the press just a couple of days ago, and this is what she had to say. Listen.
The police are not our enemies. They are human, just as we are. Flawed, just as we are. But also risking their lives every day for our safety and security. You see a police officer, say thank you. We owe them a debt of gratitude that we will likely never be able to truly repay.
And John, that was the mayor yesterday. But that was important. She said it out loud. The police are not our enemies, because unfortunately there are a lot of people in the United States who don't like police officers.
Steve, she's a flag in the wind. For 2.5 years that she's been mayor, she has vilified the police. She showed more emotion for Bobby Rush Popcorn Gate last year during the riots, or a botched raid, which wasn't botched, about a woman who was, undressed when the raid occurred. There was more emotion coming from the mayor than there was for this officer, French, that was killed. It's disgusting. And now, because the political climate says the defund policy and the police maybe aren't the enemy, now she has to pivot, and now she has to be our best friend. It's too damn late. The men and women of this police department have no respect for this mayor, and it was as palpable as you could possibly imagine outside that hospital at the University of Chicago 2 nights ago. Realistically, she would, and just a little backstory. The mayor was told, do not come up to the 7th floor of that hospital and speak to the family or the officer who was still injured fighting for his life, Officer Yanez. But yet the mayor still thought she knew best and went up there against the advice of the family. And she was given a piece, the officer's father gave her a piece of his mind, and the officers up there all turned their back on the mayor, and rightly so. It was the exclamation point to the sentiment that was outside on the street level for Officer Yanez and for Officer French.
Real quickly, what did the family tell her?
Well, his father is a recently retired CPD officer himself, and he basically, paraphrasing, there's blood on her hands.
All right. John Catanzara, the president of the Chicago Fraternal Order of Police.
Now, there's a piece there that I like, that I found interesting. That the person from the Fraternal Order of Police said that Officer French was basically the type of police that we should really see as being an example for the future of the police department. And what I've heard through all of these reports is that she was not what we used to call a dog type police. They just went out to dog people out. No, she was a social service type police, but she was the police. She was the police that tried to help people.
Mourn the loss.
She was a police that wanted to be there to serve and protect. And to hear him say that was interesting, because he has a bow wow type persona to go hunt and tree and catch. See what I'm saying? He said that she was the police of the future. What do that say about his attitude and what he spew when he usually speak? You see? So it's a lot of little things going on here that we need to pay attention to. Her example of policing probably was closer to community policing than maybe what the Fraternal Order of Police. And we ain't gonna get off into their relationship and black officers' relationship with them. But come on, brother, what is this up here? Yeah, let's look at this.
Of a colleague, some now calling on Mayor Lori Lightfoot and other city leaders to make officers feel more supported at a time when tensions across the city are running high.
Yeah, WGN's political reporter Taman Bradley is live at City Hall with that story. Taman.
Lourdes and Ben, there is understandably anger, but there is also finger pointing and more debate about police oversight. As soon as word spread that 2 Chicago police officers had been shot, people lashed out. The fury directed at Mayor Lightfoot and pro-police reform aldermen, those perceived as handcuffing the police. Alderman Matt O'Shea says officer morale is at an all-time low. Police tell him they do not feel supported.
For the past year and a half and longer, law enforcement has been under siege, underappreciated, and felt that communities don't have their back. We got to get this under control. We've got to partner with our law enforcement. We got to support our police.
Appearing on Fox News, the head of the Chicago Fraternal Order of Police, John Catanzara, ratcheted up the rhetoric.
This city is less safe because Ella French is no longer with us, because she was murdered by a violent individual that has absolutely been encouraged to do violent things by the people who run this city and state.
Visiting the hospital Saturday night, grieving CPD officers reportedly gave Mayor Lightfoot the cold shoulder. And when the mayor tried to talk to the wounded officer's father, he exploded.
The officer's father gave her a piece of his mind, and the officers up there all turned their back on the mayor, and rightly so. It was the exclamation point to the sentiment that was outside on the street level.
As I said, they've been under siege, and here they are at the hospital, racing there, hoping and praying that their colleague is going to be okay. If in fact that happened, that's where we're at. They feel that nobody cares.
Yesterday, the mayor expressed unwavering support for the men and women of the police department.
The police are not our enemies. They are human, just as we are.
In a statement, the mayor's press secretary said the mayor is focused on healing the wounds and will reject any and all who try to use the moment to drive further divisions in our city. Today, Mayor Lightfoot did not have any public events. Live from City Hall, Tamon Bradley, WGN News.
Okay, Tamon, thank you.
Now there's a YouTube piece, the oversight. Well, now let's look at this whole piece, Amari. And I don't want to spend a lot of time trying to say too much simply because we're trying to get out of here. Lightfoot, this whole test piece. Did you do that piece? If not, or if so, we'll move to the next piece. It's a YouTube piece that says Lightfoot pressed on this murder situation. This is a piece where, it's sort of awkward. But let's see what they say. Yeah, this and here. Now, as these pieces are coming up, I'm trying to get a feel presented here that will show where we are at this point. Now, this is the first officer killed under Lightfoot's tenure. Now, I pray that no one else get killed and no other citizens get killed by the police. But this is something that we need to pay attention to.
This is probably the biggest challenge in terms of policing for the mayor so far. She has to balance the concern that she has for the community, the concern she has for the police department.
Alderman Ray Lopez said French and her partner, as part of the community safety team, had sat around this table in his ward office just a few months ago. What happened to them, Lopez called horrific. He suggested perhaps it was not unexpected, though, given the political climate.
Criminals feel emboldened to attack whomever willingly, without regard for who they are, whether they are citizen or officer. And I think a lot of that falls on the political rhetoric that has led up to this point.
Chicago police officers at the hospital quietly made their own statement to the mayor as she arrived on the 7th floor of the hospital to visit the wounded officer. This photo, sent to us by the Fraternal Order of Police president, purportedly captured a moment when the officers turned their back on the mayor. The FOP says she was just out of sight on the left. The mayor's office issuing a statement this afternoon saying, in part, in a time of tragedy, emotions run high, and that is to be expected. The mayor spoke to a range of officers that tragic night and sensed the overwhelming sentiment was about concern for their fallen colleagues. Alderwoman Stephanie Coleman saying the impact of decades of disinvestment is a contributing factor to violence.
And I don't think that it is fair for 2 years of the mayor's leadership and 2 years of this administration to be blamed for what years of disinvestment.
Well, I don't think it's a time where we should be pointing fingers and blaming anyone other than those that are responsible for this senseless murder.
The mayor also reiterating the call for this to be a time for the city to come together. Craig Wall, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
Now, I like to have different perspective. We put a lot of energy, and ain't nobody trying to get no pat on the back or rub on the head. But we put a lot of energy in trying to find material that broadens our understanding of what's happening in our colony. So sometimes it's not necessary for me to do an amplification commentary. You saw those two aldermen, you heard Lopez, you heard others. That's important in my way of thinking as it relates to how the community or the colony of Negroes view what's happening. Because a lot of people don't get all of this information at the same time. Everybody get a bit here and a bit there. So we try to bring those bits and put them all in one presentation so you'll know a little more. That's the point. So it's not we trying to sprinkle salt on the mail, we trying to do this or that. No, it ain't. It's trying to get a understanding. And for me, the most important thing of any of this is that the community be seen as not just a apathetic community that supports this violence that be going on. No, that is not the Negro way. We do not support this insanity. And there are those that are beginning to push back, like what they did over there in West Inglewood and held dude once he came over the fence and was getting ready to try to, and that's the audacity. Now, you gonna come over the fence, you done shot up the police, and now you gonna pistol whip people at a barbecue. He very lucky they didn't take him out. They just held him down. That's what the Negro gotta do, hold them down. We gotta start holding them down. Not just holding down the police when he do something crazy with all of this confusion and conversation, but holding down the criminal when he do something crazy too. Now, brothers, find this piece here to say Lightfoot pressed on murder, because it's going to show another little bit that's going to be sort of uncomfortable. And I know I sent it. If I need to send it again, I will. But there's a piece to say here, something about her being pressed. It's another one of these news pieces that come out. And some of these people, I didn't even put it up there because some of this stuff be too crazy. And I'm not out here. Some of them white folk got a different agenda for Mayor Lightfoot. And Mayor Lightfoot, you know, she don't seem to be able to hear nobody but herself. She might need to start listening to some other people because, you know, if she don't be careful, these white folks gonna turn and they gonna present something that you know, it's gonna become quicksand. So that's what it is. Don't worry about it, man. If you don't see it, and I'm not gonna waste the public time going back on here trying to find something to send. But there was a piece that was dealing with the whole idea that she basically said because they wanted to blow those pipes, you know, they wanted to do the ceremony, and somehow or another there was some confusion about that. And, you know, there was some conversation that would suggest that maybe the mayor of the city brass did not want people to be able to do what they've been doing all the time. And that created a problem. And that problem is something that I think we need to look at because in one of these, the mayor was saying, let me choose my words carefully. And then, and that was the same piece that I was trying to get up here. Let me choose my words carefully. And then she said, they tried to hijack. That ain't choosing your words carefully. You know, because the police, the Fraternal Order of Police, I'm sure going to respond to that sort of critically. What you mean? We were trying to hijack. What we were trying to do is show respect for a fallen officer. So these are the type of things that we wanted to include as it relates, but somehow or another, you know, it might not be clear, and we have not seen this piece here, so I'm going to leave it. Is there anything up there that you have not shown, Amari, that we need to get up here? Otherwise, I'm going to just leave it where it is. This ought to be enough. I see a couple of things that's on this piece of paper that I haven't seen, and we are not going to deal with some of those. We'll just deal with some of what we got here and see what we got. Run this piece here, man.
Body cam video of the moment 13-year-old Adam Toledo was fatally shot.
No, what is this?
In late March. The boy appeared to have his hands raised in an alley at the time of the shooting. The 9-minute video began by showing an unidentified police officer getting out of his squad car and running after Adam Toledo in an alley at 2:30 a.m. on March 29th in Little Village, a neighborhood on the city's west side. The body cam video from the officer then showed him yelling "Stop" to Toledo before he caught up to him and ordered.
Well, there was a piece, once again, looking at this computer. Like I say, a lot of people working from home, and as a result of that, a lot of what we thought we was going to present is getting caught up in some of these other people using the space. And it is what it is. I mean, some stuff we got here. Now, we're about to, yes, go on with this, man. Where this woman down in Texas spent 15 hours. Couldn't eat, couldn't go to the bathroom, couldn't sit down, couldn't lean against the wall. And a filibuster. But those GOP people down in Texas, go on and run this, brothers. The video is just a headline. I thought I saw a video of this. If not, in summary, after all of that filibuster, those people still said, nope, we will restrict the voting rights, particularly of Negroes. They didn't say whether or not they was restricting voting rights of people of color, but since she appears to be a Hispanic, I'd imagine she was concerned not only with the voting right of Negroes, but all people that are being suppressed as it relates to voting. And I think one of the things we need to understand is this: there's a lot of regression going on. There's a lot of things going on that we are not paying attention to. And one of the reasons I think the census is so important as it relates to this information is that now maybe people like me can stop having to be so redundant, and we can see these people are serious. They are very serious. They are erasing you, Negro, as a group. They are merging you in that you will not even have a category. Now, we first saw that, at least I paid attention in 2010, when I tried to say I was a Negro. Wasn't no place for that. This time, wasn't no place for that. And as we go forward, there won't be any place whatsoever. And the American thing will be white, because they want to keep the money for the white folk, and people of color. And those people of color will be Hispanic, Latino, Asian, in that group. But anything that's got a dark skin that look like they might have came from so-called Africa. And it definitely, if you came from a so-called background of slavery, you will not be counted for, I don't even want to call special consideration, but for your fair share of your tax dollars being dispersed in areas where you need them to be dispersed, where you live. So these are things that our people need to pay attention to. We saw what happened here in the city, and this situation I made a little bit of an issue of the dudes that killed the police status. They seem to be, for all practical purposes, Negroes, but more than anything else, people of color. Yes, and I raised the question of whether or not the police officer is a person of color or a descendant that would have been called a Negro. Yes, I raised that. Yes, I say it matters because there are dynamics that we are not addressing. That is that if the dark-skinned people would have been stopped, if the dark-skinned people name would have been Flores, you would have had a different feel. But because the light-skinned people name of Morgan, you was a little bit confused because you figured they should have been Flores. And when you saw their mama, now you say it started in the home, but you see how the mother came in the hospital. The mother came in the hospital and she ended up getting arrested. Why? Because the way she came. So if she came in the hospital like that, then you can imagine, I'm just saying, that if the mother had that type of energy, she already knew what was up. She already knew that they was accused, arrested for killing the police. So she should have already known that if she come up into the hospital, getting out of her body in any way, they was going to do this. But she came and she got arrested. Why? See? So somebody would say, well, that's more behavior of a Negro than a Hispanic. You see what I'm saying? But no, it's just the behavior of a person of color that you don't know, but which is a preview of what's to come. See? But that dark-skinned Negro gonna still be the last one that get any consideration. He gonna still be the one that they looking for to be negative. He gonna still be the one to get the headlines. You see what I'm saying? And all I'm saying is that we need to begin to pay more attention because the census have shown us that America has become more diverse, but the more diversity is not reflecting the Negro. It's reflecting the combination, not of black and brown, but of brown and brown, Hispanic and Latino. They join them together. They're going to say because of the language Spanish. Then they join the Asian. See, the Latino percentage went up 23%. Asian went up 36%. White folk came down 8.6%. Negro, African American descendants of slaves grew about, operative word, about 6%. They don't even know how much the so-called descendant of slaves population grew. Damn, how can this be? You know everything exact for everybody else. But when it comes down to those descendants of slaves, the so-called Negro, you don't even know. You say about, so you estimate. So when the time comes to get a piece of that pie of service, you will not give the Negro what he or she should have. You will give them an estimated amount. See, Negro, you better wake up. I'm not just talking to hear myself talk. And yeah, I am redundant because I know that sometimes you don't pay attention. You don't even hear. And because you don't hear, you can't listen. But the truth is, unless you start paying attention, my grandchildren and your grandchildren, they won't know what the hell they are. They won't know who they are. But they will know that they're being treated worse than their great-grandparents were treated. But their great-grandparents was called, too, colored people. You see? They was forced to drink at different fountains. But there's a headline that we didn't show. Right there in Atlanta, they are still discriminating. There's a big thing going on down there. They discriminate against kids in school because of their color. We saw it on this show not long ago, where kids was being discriminated in the lunchroom because of their color. If that ain't segregation, what is it? And this is what, 20, 21? And you want to sit here and say it don't matter? It matters. It matters not only in how the police deal with the colony called Negro community, it matters how the schools deal with it. But the bottom line is, we, as descendants of slaves, they're going to say we was undercounted. They're going to say we didn't want to be counted. But you're going to tell me you counted all of those illegals, huh? You's a lie. They the one that didn't want to be counted. But you allowed their numbers to go way up. So you just counted them with a phantom count. Huh? The Asians' numbers just went way up. So all of these people that's immigrants, their numbers went up. But they were the ones that were not yet citizens to be able to be comfortable enough not to get deported. But their numbers just skyrocketed. Their numbers ballooned. Their numbers surged. The poor Negro that should have been counted regardless of Trump, regardless of a pandemic, their poll numbers hardly grew at all. And the little bit they grew was about a 6%. Until next week, think about it. Alafia, peace, and good health.